If you got questions about barbecue or grilling, maybe as a hobby or even a business, looking to get an expert's point of view, why not ask Dr. Barbecue? You can submit your questions by clicking on the Ask Dr. Barbecue tab on the website. The doctor is in. Here's Ray Lampy with his nurse, Greg Rempe. Dr. Barbecue.
All right, just like that, it is time for our weekly Ask Dr. Barbecue segment, and Ray Lampy joining us here on the show. Ray, how are you, buddy?
I'm good, Greg. How about yourself?
I'm doing absolutely fabulous, Ray. Appreciate you asking. And, you know, we're finding you. Oh, geez, I jumped right off the screen that I should have had you on there. There we go. We got to have the fire underneath us, so it's like we're roasting like two human marshmallows. Very pyrotechnic. So it's the World Food Championships that has really dominated the second hour of the show yesterday. We had some Chad Ward recap. He cooked in it a little bit. We also had some Pitmaker recap. Obviously, they did very well on the barbecue side of things. Fell short of the overall. But, you know, 1-2 were, technically 1-2, and I guess 3 were all barbecue guys in some form or fashion. They didn't necessarily win with the barbecue, but they are barbecue guys. You had a little different aspect. We talked about it a little bit going out of last week into this past weekend, which was you were going to be playing a judging role. So, you know, probably 15 different places that we could start and things that you can recap, but you know, from a general sense, when you got out there, how did the weekend kind of unfold for you, and how did you find the events?
Oh, well, I mean, in general, the location was great. If you've ever been on Fremont Street, you know, it's a little bit different. It's old school Las Vegas, but they set up 30 kitchens, full kitchens. Kenmore brought in all these appliances, and that was right there. And there was a stage that we used primarily for the World Food Championship right there. And it was just a cool deal. We were all staying at the hotels right there. So you'd walk through a casino and run into somebody new at Starbucks, at the bar, and then there was events that popped up. Wright Bacon was there as a sponsor. They had a party one night at a kind of a hoity-toity bar, but it was very cool. They made a bacon cocktail. The Bison Council was there. They had a party one night. There was a big party that the World Food Championship put on, one welcome party poolside at the Golden Nugget that was really cool. It was just, it really shaped up as an event, I thought, much nicer. And boy, the thing's got a lot of legs. I mean, the barbecue event is still, unfortunately, so big that it has to have its own area. But in general, I thought the thing shaped up as an event really nice. I had a great time.
You were there last year as well, right, Ray?
Yes, I was.
All right, so comparing the infant of last year to now the toddler of this year, did you see like noticeable leaps and bounds? Were there, you know, logistical gaps and shortcomings last year that they were able to tighten up, or you know, how did you see it from one year to the next, I guess?
Well, last year it was almost hard to see it as a one event because it was so scattered around Bally's, and they couldn't help it. It was just the logistics of being at one of those big casinos. And of course, they wanted to funnel everyone through the casino as opposed to letting them walk along the sidewalk on the side. So it was just logistically, it was hard to really even grasp that it was one event. I don't know how else to say that. It looked like a whole bunch of little events at one place. Now, the award ceremonies would come together, but again, it was so big and so far apart. There was no central location. I thought it was really scattered last year. This year, so you couldn't really, I don't know how to answer because I didn't really have much of a feel for it last year. This year, completely different, in my opinion. It was very much circled in as an event. Pretty much centrally located was this outdoor kitchen area and a judging tent right with it. And what they did was they had 2 or 3 events each day there. They had sandwich, burger, recipe, dessert, and whatever the other one, bacon, all in these kitchens. Chili and barbecue had their own area. That's just kind of the way it goes. But so it was very much, if you stayed in that same area, you would have saw 5 events and all of the award ceremonies and all the demonstrations and everything else that went along with it. And frankly, it was such a cool spot right in the middle of Fremont Street with that cover overhead and all the casinos. And And there was a really great little taco joint a couple doors down that I went to on a regular basis. Bars everywhere. Fremont Street is very much like going to Bourbon Street or Duval Street or Beale Street now. There's just bars on the street. And, man, it was just – so, in my opinion, logistically, it came together beautifully. Now, I can't speak to every little thing that happened. I'm sure there's competitors that had gaffes and problems along the way. But the big picture, I think it came miles and miles.
All right, so as far as you judging, obviously there was a lot of things to take your attention or to keep your attention that maybe didn't have anything to do with the event itself, except they were parties and they were promotions. Hey, that's great, good time. But when it actually came for you to put in work and do the judging stuff, what were you involved in?
I judged 5 of the 7 final tables.
Wow.
5 to 7 final tables on Saturday. It was for TV is why we did it. There were 3 judges, myself, Ben Vaughn, and Whitney Miller, who won Master Chef the first year. The 3 of us were like the omnipresent judges. So the only way they could really figure to do it was to have us judge all of the events, which was kind of crazy, but it was only really, there was no other way to do it, so we had to sample all this food. So we sampled 50 entries on Saturday. But it was cool because I got to sample the top 10 in all 5 of those categories. So it really can speak to what the food was looking like. It was pretty cool.
From a culinary perspective, did the turn-ins exceed you in every mark? Were there a handful of ones that were and a handful of ones that were like blowing your mind off? By and large, how did you find the entries?
Yeah, it was pretty much like that. I found some that were really surprisingly weak and others that were surprisingly kick-ass. Now, by the 3rd day, these competitors had really worked hard. I mean, they had to cook 2 dishes on either Thursday or Friday, and then Saturday they had to cook a new dish, a 3rd one, and they gave them each a little bit of a curveball. In the sandwich category, their secret ingredient was fish. In the burger category, their secret ingredient was A1. In the recipe, which was actually pasta for this year, their secret ingredient was bison. So they really had some different things to work with. So some people really excelled at it, and others it appears to have blown their minds, and they didn't know what to do. And for example, the recipe category was pasta, and they had to use some bison. Well, okay, that's not an unreasonable combination, I don't think. And I think it's kind of cool to challenge them a little bit. Some people really got it and integrated the pasta nicely in like a ragu or something with their pasta. Other people made fettuccine alfredo and laid a sliced steak on top of it. It didn't, they were a little bit, apparently didn't get it. In sandwich with fish, we saw, there was, I'd say, at least 3 entries that someone made their favorite salmon dish that they serve at home and just put it on a bun. Huh. It was okay, but it was just kind of weird. I've never had a salmon sandwich like that. It seemed a little weird to me. They were like trying to force fit. On the other hand, there was a grouper sandwich with like a curry salsa on it that was great. So it was all over the board. And the most interesting category to me was bacon, because there's just no real footprint for bacon.
Right.
They were tasked with using duck in combination with the bacon for Saturday. But I don't think that's a bad combination at all. I can think of some things I would have done, and some of them really made some killer stuff. There was 2 egg rolls that had duck and bacon in them that were great. There was a giant croquette kind of a thing made by, I found out later, by Hash House A Go-Go, like a big duck, kind of a Kiev, like a big duck breast wrapped around some cheese and bacon, and with breaded in panko and deep fried.
Oh.
I mean, the thing was great. One guy made a sort of a duck chicken fried steak. He pounded out a piece of duck breast and fried it like a chicken fried steak and served it on top of a really thick slice of bacon. I mean, I'd order that in a restaurant. It was great. But bacon was, who knows what guys are going to make. So there was some fun stuff. It was very cool.
Ray Lampe joining us here on the show, recounting his time at the World Food Championships as a judge. I guess we'll fast forward so we can hit some questions as well while we have some time. But
hang on, hey, let's talk about barbecue though.
Oh wait, no, I wasn't done yet.
Okay.
When we get to the barbecue aspect of it, so top 10 in the it was brisket and ribs and pork. Right. So top 10 move on to the next day, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so it's like 3/4 almost of a traditional KCBS contest, and they leave the chicken off the board.
Well, I think that was because, they wanted to, I guess, simplify it a little bit, but there's some places where they don't cook chicken, and do we make it chicken halves or chicken thighs or, I don't know. I wasn't involved in that process, but I don't think it's anybody that really wants chicken in there, well, sorry.
Yeah, pretty much. So when the top 10 move on, how are they advancing through to try and get to that final table?
Well, I think it's a KCBS Competitor Series contest on Friday.
Yeah.
What they did Thursday, they did a Rancher's Reserve beef contest and a side dish contest, which I don't know anything about what happened over there. And Friday, it was a KCBS Competitor Series with those 3 categories. And the top 10 then move on to the World Food Championship system on Saturday.
And then what were they doing on Saturday? Was it the anything but?
That's what I would call it. I never really saw the rules or how it was determined, but I can tell you by what was in front of me, it was anything but.
And Pitmaker goes from 9th overall the night before, and pretty much, well, not only pretty much, just leapfrogs everybody to finish first in the barbecue category after the second day, and no less doing it with, I guess, a simple but expertly cooked chicken half, which is how they do it for the majority of those guys in the Texas area. A lot of IBCA doing down there. And in that contest situation, it's always half chickens. There's no garnish. So from what I heard, and from all accounts, that chicken was spectacular.
It really was, yeah. I figured it was a Texan. So I'm sitting there, the way they do it is very much like KCBS. So you got the 10 entries in front of me. If you look at some of the pictures on my Facebook page, I don't think, well, there is a picture of the barbecue stuff, but it's not on our plates yet. So I'm sitting there with a half of an orange with 2 pieces of some sort of beef on there, maybe a tri-tip or something. I've got a rack of lamb. I've got a couple of slices of tri-tip. I've got a slice of prime rib. I've got at least 1 beef tenderloin, maybe 2. I got 2 pork belly entries. There's a scallop stuffed with salmon. I mean, it's a variety. And there's this big kick-ass half a chicken. I'm sure it's a Texas guy. I didn't know clue who it was. I hadn't really had time to spend with the Texans, with the barbecue guys, but it was pretty sure that was a Texan that turned that half chicken in, and kind of an interesting idea. It was fun sitting there looking at this like, wow, how do you even start? But what I'll tell you, my impression of why it won, it wasn't a cold day, but it wasn't hot. But the stuff, like a typical contest, it's out on a plate and it's sitting there for a little while. And I later learned that the rack of lamb that was Leanne's that came in second. But so I ate the thing on an orange, which looked a little crazy, but it was good. Actually, I was kind of surprised. And Famous Dave had this whole routine where he squeezed the orange juice on it and loved it. And then we went out to the rack of lamb. The rack of lamb was really good, and so on and so on. But anyway, the rack of lamb was delicious, but it was not very hot. It had been sitting there for a little bit. Rack of lamb, you're going to want to eat that as soon as it comes off of the rack. I can tell you, I personally, and I would bet most of the other judges, did not take that into account. We judged it as it was. We didn't think, well, gee, this person didn't try to get it hot. You knew the situation. Yep. I don't think that was a problem at all. But when you get to the chicken half, it's still hot and juicy and fresh because it's a big-ass chicken half. It was a really smart move on their part, I think, to do that. You had to get it perfect, but, man, they did. It was really good. I can tell you I had a half, and I cut some off of the leg, and I tasted it, and I thought it was really good. And then I cut some out of the white meat like I would if I was judging in Texas, and it was really good. And then I went a little deeper into the white meat, make sure it was cooked all the way down there like I should, and I did. And I'm telling you, this thing was kick-ass. It was really good. Now, Famous Dave was bitching something about that the skin was rubbery. I didn't think it was. It was not crispy skin, but it was. I did not have a problem with the skin at all. I think that thing was perfectly cooked, and it, would it have won if everything would have been 10 seconds off the cutting board? I don't know, but it would have had a serious shot. It's not like it couldn't have competed with a hot rack of lamb and a hot piece of tenderloin. The thing was really good.
So that ends up winning the barbecue portion. They're then springboarding into the overall for World Food Championship domination. And here's what I find interesting. You just said how, it was smart, whether they meant to or not, but you have a whole half chicken so it's able to retain heat because it's a big piece. Things that are cut up, things that are smaller, obviously are going to lose heat a lot more quickly. In the finals, Ray, they do brisket, and it's a slice. And from what I understand, it was turned in like an hour before you guys even got a taste of it. So while they seem to be smart in advance of the finals, man, slicing that brisket, going up against cake, which is going to be great at room temperature no matter what. Does that kind of screw them in the end, that you think? Because you look at it at first blush and you're like, how the hell is cake going to beat brisket?
Well, when I heard they were turning in brisket, I thought it was a mistake. I would have turned in those same kick-ass chicken ass. Now, I didn't judge the final table. For whatever reason, they had Famous Dave in there, and they didn't think him and I would both, would be a I hate to say that we're kind of the same, but we're kind of the same to the lay. So, which was fine. I had judged plenty. I was happy to not be, that didn't bother me at all. So I can't say I didn't actually eat this stuff. I can't tell you exactly how long that stuff sat around, but I can tell you I've been in many situations like that on TV and in competitions like this. And if they didn't anticipate it sitting around, they made a big mistake because they had seen it the day before. Anyone should have known that stuff was going to sit around. So I think, I thought it was a huge mistake on their part. And I told them that they thought they should have turned in chicken. But those guys are from Texas, man. What do you think they're gonna do?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't blame them for doing it. That's what they do. And hell, they came in second. That was pretty good. But with the chicken might not have came in second. Who knows? It might not have gotten the respect among those final table judges that it did among the people that were judging barbecue. The barbecue judges was. Carolyn Wells was down there, and Famous Dave, and Mike Wozniak, and there was some pretty serious barbecue judges there, along with some chefs and stuff. So I think that they've got the respect that it deserved on that plate in the barbecue tent. Don't know, now would Robin Leach have thought a chicken even had a chance in hell? Would he have expected it to be like a roasted chicken from a French restaurant and been disappointed that it wasn't? You know what I mean? I don't know. It's hard to say. They might not have came in second if they turned in the chicken, but I sort of thought they should have.
Ray Lampe joining me here on the show. We do a weekly segment called Ask Dr. Barbecue. You can find that website at askdrbbq.com if you have a question that you would like to submit. Ray, can we do one question here before I turn you loose tonight?
Yeah, sure, Greg.
All right. This is from Steve Ray, and he wrote, Greg, can you please ask Dr. Barbecue how to grill, not smoke, chicken thighs on the Big Green Egg without getting them charred? I've tried a couple of different times, but the skin gets black and I get a lot of flare-ups. The taste is pretty good, but the presentation is lacking. Thanks in advance. Love the show. So what do we do about charring the chicken thighs on the Big Green Egg?
Well, if you want to grill them direct, and I don't think that's a bad way to go, I do it.
Yeah.
I suspect he might be using a traditional barbecue rub that's going to have a bunch of sugar and chili powder and paprika in there, and that's always going to be a problem trying to grill direct with something like that, because I'm assuming he knows how to cook on his egg and is confident with it. You should be able to control the fire and not be able to burn up the chicken. So keep the temp down a little bit longer. What I do typically, if I'm going to grill direct, start out nice and slow. Start out at 250 and let the chicken get warmed up a little bit. Let it get into where it's about half cooked through, and then open the vents up a little bit and run it up to 350 or so, and you'll get that char, but you'll have the inside cooked. So that's how I cook chicken direct on the egg a lot. However, the nature of cooking pieces of chicken direct, they're going to get a little crispy. It's kind of how it goes. But I suspect he might be using a rub with a little bit of sugar and chili powder and paprika in there, and I'd stay away from that. I just would use like a seasoned salt if I want to grill direct. But I'm going to give you another option.
Yep.
You can put the plate setter in, cook indirect, but don't be afraid to run the temp up. Load it up with charcoal. I cook at 550 indirect. That plate setter is not going to break. You can get that thing as hot as you want. It's not going to be a problem. Get the thing 550 indirect and cook that chicken and watch what happens. It'll get crispy skin, all bubbly, kind of charred up skin without the fire ever getting near the chicken.
My initial thought when I was reading the question was, well, maybe he doesn't have the skill of fire management with this cooker yet because, that thing can get rocket hot in just a matter of, 10, 15 minutes if you have the vents open properly or improperly, depending on what your taste is. And then I was like, well, thighs are inherently a lot more fattier than, pretty much any other part of the chicken. So, if he's not accounting for the fact that as the cook goes on, there's fat rendering out of the thigh, and as soon as you open that up, or even if you're cooking hot enough, I mean, you have more propensity to flare when you have thighs. So if you're not careful, you could have some black skin on that.
That's why they taste so good, because they're all fatty. But you're right, totally.
Yeah, absolutely. Ray Lampe joining us here on the show, the Ask Dr. Barbecue segment. Ray, what's going on this weekend? Any more cook-offs before kickoffs?
Yeah, man, I had to go straight from Las Vegas to Columbia, South Carolina. That's where I am right now. And we're fighting with the hotel. My coworker, Beth, is locked out of her room. The battery's dead in the lock in her door, and she can't get in her room. And we were in the middle of a whole thing going on here.
Well, hopefully they get worked out, and you can find information about Cook-Off Before Kickoff. If I'm wrong, correct me, Ray, but it's cookoffbeforekickoff.com, right?
Yep. Yeah, there's all kinds of info there, 100 recipes, and you can enter that contest where you can win a trip to Pasadena for the BCS championship game.
Yep, sounds like a hell of a lot of fun if you get to win that. It's Ray Lampe, drbbq.com is his website. And if you have some questions that you would like to ask Ray during this segment that we do each and every Wednesday, it's askdrbbq.com. I would have to imagine, Ray, that next week there might be some Thanksgiving-themed questions as that date is easily coming to our grasp.
Oh man, I might be into the wine on Wednesday. I'm going to be at some friend's house down in South Florida. Uh-oh. Could be an entertaining show.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to that. Ray, always appreciate the time, and we'll talk to you soon.
Take care, Greg.
All right. There he is. Ray Lampe, Dr. Barbecue.
Bye.